In a raid on an unauthorized warehouse in Freiburg, that's in the northwest, members of the South African Revenue Service and police seized Bitcoin mining equipment worth 10 million rand. The cryptocurrency mining equipment was illegally connected to the town's electricity grid, we're told, through that warehouse. Now, in addition to the costly consequences of not paying for services like electricity, Eskom has issued a warning that illegal connections could overload the national grid and cause more trips and failures than we're currently seeing. Let's unpack now how digital mining actually works and how it impacts the power grid, especially if it's connected to it illegally. Our guest is my broadband editor-at-large, Jan van Meeren, who joins us via our video link this morning. And Jan, it's not the kind of story you come across all the time, especially because of how little we know about cryptocurrency, let alone cryptocurrency mining.
Indeed, this is, according to SARS Commissioner Edward Kisvetter, the first time that they have seized mining equipment like this, but also highlighting that it's incidental that they seize the mining equipment. It's not because cryptocurrency mining in South Africa is illegal. It's because of the way this whole operation was set up. There was illegal alcohol being manufactured, other local brands, it sounds like, being manufactured duty-free, and then obviously this illegal connection to the town's electrical grid, which in itself is not a SARS issue, but everything else taken together, the fact that the business wasn't registered properly and so on, led to them cracking down on this warehouse and seizing everything inside, including the mining equipment.
Yeah, we're told it's actually power-intensive mining equipment, and that's going to, I suppose, raise questions around how this mining actually takes work. I mean, cryptocurrency in my mind is digital currency, so why are we mining anything?
Yeah. So it's not physical mining. So this is Bitcoin is based on a system called proof of work. A lot of other popular systems have moved away from proof of work to separate systems, like proof of stake, for example. Now, without getting into the details of exactly how the different systems work, the bottom line is proof of work uses a very complex mathematical calculations to secure the network, and in this case, the Bitcoin network. And those complex mathematical calculations requires a huge amount of computing power to solve. And because of how much computing power it requires to solve it, that helps secure the Bitcoin network, and it's how transactions are verified and put on the blockchain. So the complexity of the calculations is what causes the security. That means that you can't reverse engineer the transactions because they're too complex and rewrite the whole blockchain. And so that's what makes it so that you can't just inject whatever transactions you want onto the blockchain or create fake transactions or double spend or anything like that. So that's the reason for the proof of work. And as you say, it's quite energy intensive. One of these, depending on what kind of Bitcoin mining units they were using, but they use as much power as a residential geyser, sometimes even more. So it's if you're looking at about 100, say 60 to 100 of these units that got confiscated, if they're valued 10 million rand, you're looking at one warehouse running the equivalent of 65 to 100 or 150 residential geysers. It's a huge amount of power, and it's one thing if they're paying for that power, but if they're using that power illegally, it's a massive problem.
Right, and you say there could very well be a scenario where people do this legally and they pay for it.
Yes, so because of the cost of electricity in South Africa, it's not that profitable to mine this way at the moment because of also where the price of Bitcoin is at. So, if you're paying, 2 Rand to 2.50 Rand per kilowatt hour, I think that you can eke out a profit, depending on what kind of miners you're using. But beyond that, you start trading at a loss, and then you're almost speculating. You mine, hold the Bitcoin, hope for the price to go up, and then sell it at a later stage to turn a profit. It's the major input costs, or the major input cost in operations like this is the electricity. So if you can just connect illegally and not pay for the electricity, that's free money. Or at least all of that money goes towards paying off your mining equipment, and from then on, it's free money.
Okay.
And so that's why they are connecting to the grid illegally, because it is their biggest single cost for the mining operation.
I suppose you've answered my next question, at least part of it, but I can see how this becomes an Eskom issue and a police issue because there's illegal activity involved. But where does SARS get in?
Yeah, so SARS got into this. It was a joint. Looks like it was a joint operation between SARS and police crime intelligence, and the reason was that this was an illegal business. The business, or at least that's what SARS Commissioner Edward Kieswetter has suggested, is the business was not registered as a business properly, and crucially was not paying its taxes. That's what SARS cares about. And so, on top of the not paying for the electricity, not paying the taxes on the cryptocurrency mining operation, they were also manufacturing alcohol and not paying the proper taxes on that. And so this whole business operation, like the whole way it was turning a profit was by dodging the costs that every other legitimate business has to pay. And so SARS says no, that besides the fact that it's stealing money out of state coffers, that's also putting legitimate businesses that have these costs and are paying their just dues at a disadvantage. And so it is incredibly important for law enforcement to crack down on operations like that because it makes a joke out of everybody else who's doing business legally in the country.
Absolutely. All right, fair enough. I mean, part of what we understand is that these authorities came through a story like this incidentally. In other words, they weren't looking for them, but found them nonetheless. Does that mean that there may very well be several other people doing this without us knowing? And perhaps what underscores that question is how easy it is to set up a business like this illegally.
Yeah, so it's apparently very easy to bypass electricity meters without giving a how-to guide on how to do that on air. But but the commissioner has said, so I just want to clarify that this was an intelligence-led operation. So in other words, police crime intelligence, in particular for this operation, provided the information that led to the investigation and ultimately the arrest.
Right.
So what was incidental was that this happened to include Bitcoin mining equipment. But SARS is actively out there with the police looking for people who are conducting business illegally and cracking down on them. And the Kieswetter has actually said that they know of several other illegal mining operations like this, and essentially sending out a warning that SARS is coming for you.
I suppose, like with many other forms of crime, the more loopholes you have in the system, the easier it is for criminality to kind of take advantage of that, right? Would you say that is a gauge to determining how prevalent something like this is in other countries? I'm trying to gauge whether or not this would typically be a South African problem or a problem that just exists in any other country with weaknesses in their law enforcement.
Yeah, it's exactly that. It's got to do with how capable or how capacitated your law enforcement is. And so it does raise questions, for example, about what happened in China. China just banned mining outright. And one could read between the lines there that they were just tired of the illegal operations or potentially the strain on their electricity grid, because just after that, they ran into some capacity problems on their grid, not unlike what we have in South Africa. I don't think it's quite, stage 6 load shedding, but they were running into essentially load shedding type problems in China. And so, this problem does exist in other countries where people are setting up, and it's not just cryptocurrency mining operations, but certainly cryptocurrency mining operations amongst them. We've got the illicit tobacco trade in South Africa, amongst others, illegal alcohol, all of these things, black market trade, across different product categories where the duties or the taxes on those products create an incentive to bring them in illegally and sell them under the counter, or sometimes even, over the counter. It's even quite brazen sometimes. But it's not just a South African issue. This happens all over the world. And, you just have to peruse, the press release or the press offices of U.S. Law enforcement agencies like the firearms and drug control agencies over in the U.S., through the European Union, through to other countries, to know that this is a problem around the world. Syndicates, cartels, try to make money this way, and the only way to stop it is proper enforcement. You can create all the laws in the world making it illegal, but if you don't enforce them and have there be severe consequences for being caught, then it will just keep happening. And you'll see these operations moving from country to country to where it's easiest to set up. So if South Africa sends a message that this is not the place to come if you want to set up an illegal operation, then you'll see those people migrate to a different country where they can fly under the radar perhaps a bit easier.
Fascinating stuff. A lot of it also very logical. Jan van Meulen, always great speaking to you, sir. Thanks very much indeed for your time.